This is a Range Rover Velar, and it's a little bit like flying British Airways premium economy because it is the second least expensive Range Rover you can buy, yet it's still designed to be comfy and luxurious. Now in this video I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this car because Land Rover have made some changes to the exterior and the interior and the technology. I'm also going to take it for a drive as well and launch it to time it from 0 to 60 miles an hour. I'm Matt Watson and you're watching CarWow. Let's start off this video by talking through the design of the Velar and the changes that Land Rover have made. The first is that they've got rid of the name Land Rover from the back. Just says Range Rover now because that's worth more money. Also, they've changed the tail lamps so they now have this 3D effect, and this is what they look like when you have them on. They've also redesigned the lower part of the bumper. Now if you want to compare before and after, this is what it is. Moving down the sides, we've got some new alloy wheel designs. They start at 19 inches, which are going to look too small for this car, and rise all the way up to 22s. These, for your reference, are 21s, which are just about big enough. This car has the optional black roof, so you get this two-tone effect with the paintwork, but all models come with the obligatory SUV roof bars. As with the pre-facelift version, you've got poppy outy door handles like that. I'm going to pop them back in so they fit flush to the bodywork when the car is turned off. Helps with the overall sleek, slightly sporty design for this SUV. It's quite a nice looking car. They've also changed the headlights, so they have this multi-pixel headlight design and dual-like daytime running lights. They look quite nice, don't they? Land Rover has also changed the design of the grille, so before you had hexagonal shapes in the grille, now you have rectangle shapes. They've also tweaked the lower bumper design as well down there. So then, how much does this car cost? Well, let's go on to CarWow. Starts at £54,000 and rising to £80,000 for the top of the range model, though that is before options. Here on the inside, the most noticeable change over the pre-facelifted car is this new infotainment screen here, which is quite large. It's curved, looks nice. However, it is not perfect. So the actual layout itself, I don't know, it's not confusing, but it's not the most obvious either. And the graphics are a bit dull. Plus, look, it's not the zippiest system in the world, is it? No. Another thing is they've got rid of the separate climate control buttons. They used to be down here with a separate screen for them. Now the climate's in here. Now they are on the screen permanently, so like windscreen demist, like rear window, the door mirrors as well. But to change temperature, you have to press that button first, and then you can go and change the temperature and stuff like that, and then do the fan, do the seats, blah de blah de blah. That's just not as easy to use as turning a dial like you used to do. Another thing that I don't like is that the terrain response system and the different driving modes, you used to be able to operate it by pressing a separate button. Once again, here it's all done through the screen, so God, I can't even remember where it is. Mode, there we go, mode. No, stay on, mode. Why are you disappearing? Mode, there we go. So if you want to switch, you have to press, once again, one button, then two buttons rather than just one. And it's not a physical button. You know, screen is always harder to press, though it is quite close to the wheel, which is a good thing, I guess. What's less good, though, is what they've done with this space. So, because you used to have things here like that and things going on here, they got rid of all that, put it through the screen, and now we've just got this area of plastic. Look at that. They've tried to create a minimalist look. I actually think they save money by putting everything through the screen. And this doesn't look necessarily minimalist. It just looks like they've forgotten to fit the other bits. What they have done is move this gear selector. It used to be over here. They've moved it central, but it looks a bit like lonely. And to tell you the truth, the original design, when they used to use a wheel for the gear selector, was actually much better than this more protruding gear selector. And I think that while they were doing all this kind of shenanigans, they should have at least put a cover in for the cup holder, because that just looks like that hasn't been fitted. I'm not sure about this update in terms of the interior design. I don't think it's necessarily all that good. One of the things I wish they had changed, the buttons on the steering wheel, which they're sort of like touch sensitive, but you also press them and they're a bit confusing. And to find your way around the menus in the digital driver's display is an absolute faff. Get out of there. What have I done now? I don't know. Oh no, I just go, oh, yeah, great. The design itself though, I do quite like it. Just the overall look of the dash. You have this kind of slightly strange feeling material here, but it's squidgy, that's squidgy, that's squidgy, this feels all right. So I do quite like that. Anyway, let's talk about the driving position, which is pretty good. And I like this feature. I'm going to take this because I need to show you that to release the steering wheel, to move it, you actually turn this knobbage there. Look, now I can move it. Can you see that? I quite like that, rather than the systems that you have in other cars when you have to like undo a latch underneath the steering column. Anyway, I'll give the camera back to cameraman Lewis. So underneath here you have some storage. You've got USB there, USB-C. That's all right, and I like the fact that you have like two separate armrests so you can operate them independently and you can slide them like that. Oh, look, now I've covered the cup holders, I get it, but then you've got this exposed here. I'd rather have a normal cup holder cover, to tell you the truth. Speaking of the cup holders, look, that's big enough. And let's just check out the door bins. So here we go. I haven't even got that in shot. There we go, but you can see that fits quite nicely. And while we're at it, will the bottle fit in the glove box? Yes. That is more than adequate. It's all right in here, I think. However, I don't think the overall quality is quite as nice as in a BMW X3. Land Rover hasn't made any changes to the back seats on the Velar, apart from one very strange change, but I'll come on to that in a moment. So knee room, that's all right. Headroom, that's pretty good too. People over 6 foot will be fine in the back of this car. But what happens if you need to carry 3 people at once? Well, if you look down here, you will see that the middle seat is quite narrow, and then there's this huge hump in the floor and not much space there between this console and the seat. So when you try and move across, look, sort of like get your feet all like in the way, and you also notice there's not that much space in the footwell for everyone's feet. Also, with 3 people in the back at once, while it's doable, shoulder room is quite tight. I do think that an Audi Q5 is a little bit better for carrying 3 people in the back at once, especially as you can slide the back seats forwards and backwards and recline them as well. Anyhow, when it comes to carrying a baby, fitting a baby seat is actually quite easy. To get to the Isofix anchor points, you remove these covers and they're nicely exposed then, that you may end up losing the covers, but there's plenty of space back here to maneuver a bulky rear facing seat into place. It's quite simple. Anyhow, I just want to show you this. You've got a armrest there, but the cup holders are exposed. But if you need to carry longer items, you can fold this down for some through loading. Actually, when I got this down, it brings me on to the change that Land Rover has made. They've put USB-C ports in here for some strange reason. So if you have this up, you're going to have cables snaking out of here. The obvious place for it would have been down here, which is where they still have the 12-volt socket. Speaking of still having stuff, if you go for the 4-zone climate control like this car has, you have the old-fashioned climate control buttons like you used to have in the front of the car, which I quite like. So you can quickly just set the temperature by rotating this dial, and if you want to do your seat, you press it in, and then you can control the temperature of your heated seat. And for the fan, it's just a simple press of a button. Why is it easier for the people in the back to use the climate control than it is the driver, who also has the added responsibility of keeping everyone safe while driving? Odd. Anyhow, what's not so odd are these airplane style folders on the seat backs, which you can actually fit like a big bottle in just about, but you're obviously going to put it in the door bin, which is fairly large. And the one last thing to test on this car, rear windows. Will they go all the way down? Let's find out. Close, but no cigar. Anyway, let's check out the boot. So the load capacity of the Velar is 550 litres, which is slightly larger than that you have with a BMW X3 or Audi Q5. However, a Mercedes GLC's boot capacity for the non-hybrid version is 620 litres. Anyhow, what I like about this Velar is, look, there is no load lip to lift the stuff over. You can just slide things out. Good-o. Underneath here, you'll see there's some storage area. Yeah. And then there's posh, heavy-duty tie-down points. There's some more there. In fact, there's one at each corner. You've got some nettage. And then, not just one, but 2, 3, and 4 curry hooks. You can tell that Land Rover is from the West Midlands because we blooming love a curry in the West Midlands. We do. We like 4 of them. Anyhow, yeah, I've got a 12-volt socket there for charging things. That's good. However, to fold down the rear seats, you have to either go round or lean through. Right, so I'm doing this. Look how I'm doing this. So move back. See what I'm doing? I'm trying not to touch the rear bumper, which is very hard, and it's pulling on my hamstrings, because if I touch that, I'm going to end up with very dirty jeans, and I reckon I can get another 5 days wear out of these. I'm filthy. Right. Okay, let's get these down. Go on. Oh, I didn't touch. Now, to slide things in, it is kind of easy because there is no ledge. Well, I say no ledge. It depends which way you're pulling stuff, because there is a ledge, actually. Can you see it? So now, to get things back, I'm going to have to go round. I can't be bothered to do that now because I actually want to tell you about 5 other annoying things about the Range Rover Velar. The windscreen wipers are recessed behind the bonnet, so if you're cleaning your car, you can't just pull at the wiper to clean the blade because you'll end up chipping the paint on the bonnet. So what you have to do is this procedure. Follow me in here. You've got to go into the car. You then have to turn the ignition on, then off again, hold down that stalk there, then press the ignition on again, and there we go. It holds the wipers up there like that. Now you can bend this out, give them a good wash, change the blades if you want to do that as well, and then go back in, turn the ignition off, and on again, and then go back to normal. All a bit of a palaver when you're busy like washing a car and you've got hands covered in soap and stuff like that. If you go for the plug-in hybrid version of the Range Rover Velar for the old tax breaks, there are some downsides. For instance, the car's boot capacity is about 50 litres less than the standard non-plug-in hybrid version. Also, the towing capacity is reduced. It's about 400 kilos less than the standard 4-cylinder. When you turn on the heated steering wheel, it appears that this part of the steering wheel, and especially this part, gets hotter than this part, which is where you actually hold it. So I found that when it's really cold, I end up trying to drive the car like this to keep my hands as warm as possible, which probably isn't the best way to hold the steering wheel. This load cover is pretty neat, tidy and compact, so you'd think you should be able to store it underneath the false floor, right? Surely it must fit. They've thought about this, the clever people at JLR. They haven't thought about that. Unlike the Big Daddy Range Rover and the Range Rover Sport, the Velar doesn't have a low-range gearbox for hardcore off-roading. However, that does bring me on to 5 cool things about this car, because let's be honest, how many people are going to take this sort of car off-road? And if they did, the Velar will fare better than most of its competition, because Land Rover have used their know-how to program certain off-road modes. So you've got grass, gravel, snow, sand, mud and ruts. It's also got a better wading depth than most of its competitors at 580 millimeters, and you can even get a special sensor so that you can measure the depth of the water so that you don't accidentally drive through a ford that is too deep for your car, like this person. That wasn't good. There are 2 things I want to show you. So first of all, look down here. You see that? That's the reversing camera. It's covered in crap. If you look up here, where's the rear windscreen wiper? Well, it's actually hid. Ah! I was going to say it's hidden underneath there, and it does wipe quite a nice big area. But what I'm going to show you now is that when you clean the rear windscreen, go on, clean it. Use the wash. There we go. Look at this. Look. See that? Do it again. Look at that. And now that is much cleaner as well. Ah, lovely. Cars with air suspension allow you to adjust the ride height. So there's off-road mode, which is higher, there's normal, and then there's access mode. What that means is that when you open the car to get in or out of it, it will lower down to just make it less of a step up or down. This panoramic glass roof is a reasonably priced option. On this particular car, it'll only cost you an extra £300, so it's well worth it. Also, unlike some other panoramic glass roofs, this one can actually be opened. Yeah, look. Which means it's also a traditional sunroof. It's good to let farty smells out of the car. Someone's, had a dodgy curry. The Meridian sound system has special noise cancelling technology which can actually counteract unwanted noise as you're driving along and reduce the noise within the car by 4 decibels. All Range Rover Velars come with an 8-speed automatic gearbox and all-wheel drive. Engine choices include a 2-litre turbocharged diesel, which is in this car, with 200 horsepower, or you can get a 3-litre diesel with 300 horsepower. Then there's a 2-litre turbocharged petrol with 250 horsepower, or a 3-litre 6-cylinder turbocharged petrol with 400 horsepower. Or there's a plug-in hybrid. That uses a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine plus an electric motor for 400 horsepower. Okay, let's see what the Range Rover Velar is like to drive in town. Now, the first thing you should know is that you don't get air suspension as standard on the 2 lowest trim levels, and you're going to want it because it does feel better to drive with it, but it's an extra 2,000 or so pounds. You do get it as standard on the higher trims though. Now, it's generally quite good, the air suspension, and it comes with adaptive dampers, but the car does still shimmy a little bit from side to side over imperfections. It's not the smoothest ride. I think a Lexus NX, even though that doesn't have air suspension, goes down the road slightly more relaxingly. That makes sense. The Lexus also has a slightly tighter turning circle, so it's just under 12 meters on this car, but I could have done with it being a bit tighter to get around there. Unfortunately, I don't have the full 360-degree cameras fitted to this particular model I've got here, so I'm less certain as to where things are. However, the rear cross-traffic alert safety system there did a brilliant job. You probably heard it tweet away then when that car went past my bottom. Stopped me reversing out into it while doing my manoeuvre. It would have been helpful to just have cameras. Go on, I'm gonna let you out. A bit of a shock for you there, someone in a Range Rover letting you pull out. As for the brakes, yeah, they're good, fairly predictable, not too grabby. Then there's the driving position. So being a Range Rover, you sit up reasonably high, though it's not as high as in a proper Range Rover or a Range Rover Sport. This car does feel more like normal car-like. Visibility forwards is pretty good. You can easily see the corners of the bonnet, even though you've got that great windscreen. Though this windscreen does create quite a blind spot from this big fat pillar, and the view out the back window isn't the best either. Now, one thing you can notice is that while this 4-cylinder diesel sounds all right for a 4-cylinder diesel, you do feel the vibrations coming through the pedals and the steering wheel from it, and that just kind of detracts from the supposed luxury feel of this particular Range Rover. Now, it's a shame because it's actually quite a decent engine in terms of its performance and the way it drives and the way it interacts with its automatic gearbox. The gearbox is quite good at choosing the right gear at the right time, and it's smooth when you're just pottering around. But what's it like when you need a sudden burst of power as you come into a faster road? Well, let's get and find out. So I'm coming up to a 70-mile-an-hour zone, cruising along around 40 miles an hour. I'm going to stab the accelerator in 3, 2, 1, go. Pause, pause. Got there in the end. Even when worked hard for a 4-cylinder diesel, didn't sound too bad, and got up to speed well enough. Just that delay on the gearbox is a little bit sluggish when you really need a burst of performance. Now, cruising along at this speed, a little bit of wind noise from there, generally pretty quiet, got a bit of road noise as well, but to be fair, these wheels are pretty blooming big, 21 inches, and I think that's probably part of the problem with the suspension, having to deal with such huge wheels. But on this Velar, you need it to have a largish wheel for it to look as cool as it can. One of the main reasons you're buying this is the looks, right? You've got to go for the big wheels and suffer the consequences. Tell you what, I'm not suffering. the economy, pretty much 42 miles per gallon. That's pretty good and very close to what Land Rover claims. They say it'll do just under 44. That's one of the advantages of a 4-cylinder 2-litre diesel. Okay, then let's ruin this economy because it's twisty road time. No, to put it into sport mode, I have to press that button. Come on, do it. Go into sport. There is dynamic. Shut that again. Faffage. Wish it was a dial down here like it used to be. Here we go. Let's see what it's like. I'm going to actually change gears myself using the pedals. Oh, metal pedals for the win. It's quite responsive to the pedal, this thing. It has stiffened the suspension somewhat, but it's not much different really. It's not terrible. It's still got that slight shimmery shakiness though that you get with this car. As for sportiness, it goes around corners all right. It's probably the best handling Range Rover. I mean, that's not saying loads, right? But you don't worry about corners, you know, it's fine, just goes round all right. You don't feel exactly connected to the road, and the steering's a bit vague, but it sort of got you covered. And there's enough grip to accelerate out the bends. Yeah. Let's come out of sports mode. It's just pointless really for a car like this. Comfort, there we go. See that? I weaved across the blooming white line then, looking down to put it into comfort mode. Finally, let's test the acceleration of this 2-litre diesel in this D200. Specialist timing gear here. Going to launch it. 0 to 60. Build up boost. Go. Oh, very quick gear change. Oh, and there we are. 8.33. Land Rover claim 7.8. It's not that, is it? I'm going to give it one more go. It just hasn't really got many revs to play with in first gear. Right, I'd say that is fairly consistent. 8.34. That's the time it does. Okay, so it's raining, but I didn't notice any slip or any intervention. It's the fact that that first gear is just over too soon, and it's just like changing up straight away, and the gear shifts aren't that quick. Listen, if you're saying it's all to do with the weather, well, Land Rover's supposed to be good at traction, aren't they? I timed a VW Touareg moments ago, same bit of road, and it did quicker than its maker claimed, and a lot quicker than this. So then, what's my final verdict on the Range Rover Velar? Should you avoid it? Should you consider it? Should you shortlist it? Or should you just go right ahead and buy it? Well, I reckon you should shortlist the Range Rover Velar. Look at this quickly. he's trying not to be in charge, so he's running around. Anyway, yes, like I said, you should shortlist the Range Rover Velar. Because, right, do you know what, in some ways it's not as good as the German competition in terms of the interior quality, the way it drives, it's not quite there. However, in terms of desirability, it's just above them. I mean, look at it, it is quite a cool looking car, and it's got that very important Range Rover badge. That gets you lots of kudos on the school run.